Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
Apparently, I'm getting an echo, but what's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to, she's a multifaceted artist, LA based. She is the one and only Daisy Chavez. Daisy, what's going on?
Hey, hi, thanks for having me. Not much. Good morning, community, everyone.
Yes, and good morning. Top of the morning to where you guys are, assuming it's morning. If you're on the East Coast, it might be, like kind of like after lunch. So, take off your, I don't want to say take off your, unnotch your belt from the breakfast that you ate and join us here at According to Woods. How about that? That's good. So, Daisy, I first became aware of your work via the mural at Fresh Thought Barber. Obviously, you've got a Sade mural behind you, which is absolutely exquisite. But how did you start getting into all things art?
Well, I could look back as far as just finding little notebooks now. And I see that I've been doodling like my whole life, like just, we all do as children, but I just kept doing it. I love to study things like, you know, telephones and whatnot. And eventually I had a project I recall in elementary grade school. And my teacher was like, what do you guys want to be when you get older? And I've always said that I want to be a teacher. And I still firmly stand by that. And I still believe that I'm channeling that. And so I drew a teacher that I want to be a teacher when I get older. And then so he was just so amazed by the detail of the desk and everything that he submitted that drawing to La Opinion, a local newspaper here in Los Angeles. And they gave me a scholarship to LAMUS Art School here that's also local in East LA. And there I got painting classes. So I was just amazed by it. Unfortunately, I didn't continue it. Like I kind of like abandoned it because whatever reason in my culture, we didn't have hobbies. It was just more like for me, it was just survival and playing outside with mud and running around. You know, those things that this next generation is a little different, right? So later on growing up, I was in college again, and then fast forward, came back to the like life. What do you want to be? What are you gonna do? And then I was just like, you know what? Like I think this art thing is just calling my name again. Like it's echoing. Talk about echoes. And yeah, here I am again. It started with CGI. So I wanted to fast forward and pretend that I didn't need the basic drawing skills. And I just wanted to deep dive into like CGI and 3D modeling, Maya software, Adobe, Autodesk, excuse me. And so it's been a long hurdle, but here I am doing murals now for the community, which like you describe me, I do also describe myself as a multimedia artist because I do like to channel different facets of the tools that I have now as an artist.
No, absolutely. Finding a medium in which you could kind of express your art in different manners. That's part of the process, right? Like seeing what you can do with clay, see what you can do digitally, seeing what you can do with oils and watercolors and what have you. And I kind of have a similar experience. Like we were kind of talking off air, but my mom, being a Fijian immigrant from the Isles of Fiji, and she basically had channeled me, whether she knew it or not. Actually, she knew. I was talking to my sister, and she knew what she was doing. But her father in Fiji was the first broadcaster, Fijian-born broadcaster in our country's history, right? And I ran away from it. Like I was just like, I would be watching pro wrestling as a kid or boxing, and then later MMA, and my mom would just be like, no, like you should be one of the commentators because those guys will probably have longer careers than the guys who are in the ring. And I'd be like, nah, mom, I'm gonna be a giant. I'm gonna wrestle. And literally my idea of like my life and career and how it was going to play out. Well, I mean, I'm from Melanesian culture and then American descendant of slave culture, right? My dad's 6'4", my mom's like, probably about, I mean, she was like about 5'6", something like that. I mean, but I have women in my family on both sides that are like 6 foot, not even mentioning the guys. So I was just like, guess what? I'm going to be a giant. I'm going to get a growth spurt. Then I'm going to train to wrestle in Japan until my knees blow out. And when that happens, I'll wind down my career and then end up at a commentary spot somewhere with like the WWE or UFC. I mean, if the guy from Fear Factor can do UFC commentary, yeah, I could too. But it's weird. I ran away from it, and I would say almost 5 years ago, it kind of got put in my lap, and you know, the rest is history. And it's been a kind of a 4 year sojourn, 4 or 5 year sojourn. But I mean, this is the way that I've been able to express myself the best.
And that's something that I didn't know that it could have been a tool, like even in my childhood. But it's not about looking in the rearview mirror, right? Now that I have it, like I want to teach it to kids. I want, especially the little girls, like to know that you could become an artist. You could do all these things. You could put your career first and have everything after. But it doesn't matter what way you want to follow. I just know that you could become an artist because even in today's culture, female artists we're still paid less. Even when I was starting the muralist journey, uh, I was starting in a coffee shop and they had like this like corridor where you never could see where I was, I guess, if I was like taking a break or wasting time, whatever you call it. But you would always hear people coming in and being like, oh, where is he? And actually, even current barber Lalo tells me the same thing, that they're always like, oh, who rendered this Nipsey mural? What she did? Like, and it's just funny that we're still stereotyped. And so I kind of want to break those. So time is going to happen regardless. So why don't we do something? Why don't we plant seeds in the process? Because that's what we are too, right? As Hispanics, I'm maybe not, my mother grew up on a farm, so maybe I'm not actually a farmer, but I do want to get into that, but that's another story. But I am planting seeds theoretically or metaphorically speaking, I like to think, because I'm seeing it happen now. Like muralists are my friends. I was lucky to collaborate with one of my local, a guy who actually inspired me to talk about shout outs, my friend Memo. So we've been able to collaborate and just everybody's building off of each other. And it's so beautiful, like this energy. And it's not even like, how would I call it? Like, oh, like what do you have? It's more like we're growing, like a healthy competition almost too sometimes, and I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the thing. It seems like, especially during quarantine, it seemed like everybody was starting to do podcasts, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, and what have you. And you could, yeah, I mean that's kind of how it started. But I mean, again, and Nate Rand says Joe Rogan was on news radio too. Absolutely, I know that because literally my mom, if there was a show, a movie about radio or TV, what have you, like we watched it religiously. That was what was going down. So like Murphy Brown, news radio, WKRP in Cincinnati, like way back in the day. Those are the things that we spent our time doing. And speaking of murals, Nate of Podium Sports, and he frequents Capetillo Boxing there in East LA. He says that's a really cool mural on the row. So
yeah, and this one I was actually trying to keep it more on the simplistic. So I'm playing around, right? I get to do this at my own home now. It's been a goal of mine to color my own walls, but I was too busy like trying to say yes to everybody. Yeah, I'll do that mural. Yes, I'll do. Because I also do motion graphics. I also Went to Cal State LA to get my undergrad as a animator. So I multimedia, and I'm still working on that. I'm not regurgitating as much animation if you jump on my Instagram, but I'm working on it. Just like I am my website, and I'm trying to be all over the place, but it's hard. You know that, right? Have a
Yeah,
one show.
yeah. I guess a layman's way to put it would be sometimes it bees like that. Sometimes it does that, and again, we were talking off air because that's one thing that this kind of COVID quarantine, thankfully haven't. I mean, I've lost people that I've known, which sucks, but if you can live, right, if you're not in a precarious situation, right, it's kind of been a way to kind of pause or slow mo your life and kind of realize what is important and what isn't. And that's just that's what this time is, and focus on what you really feel, right. And that's one thing that hopefully a lot of us have been able to explore. I know I've been absolutely nuts. Like I got a dog, I got a sauna, but then I've also like invested in the stock market. Yeah, but then I've invested in the stock market, and have a
Oh, that's
clothing line. Yeah, so it's you know I'm just trying to, like you said, plant seeds.
yeah, and you have to. I mean, that's learning. You got to put yourself everywhere and anywhere, and that's networking. I mean, you can't say let's network and then kind of like retract that by saying like, but don't overwhelm yourself. I mean, it's hard in today's world, right? Like there's so many tools and avenues. It's hard what to know. Like, is this going to be the next thing? Is like TikTokers, like if people are getting paid like just to, I don't know, they're going viral like just based off of TikTok. So if there's a will, there's a way, and and success is comes in all different like forms too. It is not based off likes. It's not based off, oh, I'm earning a lot of money because this and that. Like for me, success has come in the form of like, oh, confidence building, healing. Oh, I could do that. Like, I could give that to you. I could also give pro bono murals to the community. Like I could do that. Like, and that's so rewarding and nurturing, and it's better than a commission if you ask me.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of kind of the outreach and feedback, John Parker out of Maine, who's a pro wrestler and MMA fighter, says, "Great show so far, guys. Much respect to you, John Parker. Thank you for joining us here." And Calvin Miller, who is he is an entrepreneur. An infinite entrepreneur. He says, "Nice work." So shout out to Calvin, and I hope Saturday's event was amazing. And Nate Ren says Coca-Cola Mexicana is the best. So yeah, there you
Who
go.
needs
There you go.
coffee,
Yeah, I mean it's either that or Jarritos. Like either way, And Stephen Tatum says Adam is way more better than TikTok. I appreciate that, good sir. Stephen Tatum is a good close friend of mine, so I appreciate that even still. So yeah, I mean, and your situation is unique because I mean, as a lot of people, especially in this day and age, they don't necessarily have the you know like the educational background to go into whatever it is, right? Like the TikTokers, like Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan doesn't have a degree in broadcasting, but he's been a commentator for the UFC, and has one of the number one podcasts like in the world, and just inked a deal with $100 million Spotify deal, but he doesn't have a degree in broadcasting, the very thing that he does, right? The TikTokers, they don't have a film degree or what have you, but you actually went to school for what it is that you ended up doing that you were passionate about. So talk to me about that process.
Well, I did go to school to get an art degree. Obviously, college makes you major something more specific. You can get a generalized art degree, but for me, animation and like going back to the CGI, It was just mind blowing. Like, so I watched a Star Wars clip and I shed a tear. I was like, oh, we could do that. Like, that's super badass. And I think that goes back to growing up with two older brothers because they were just constantly playing video games and we were either outside or we were inside. And then so they hogged the TV and that's fine. But I was always taken back by it. I actually enjoyed it. It was not like they were torturing me or anything. So to this day, like as I watch CGI effects just grow, I can't wait to get into that field because even that field, like you don't see a lot of girls in there. When I took my first Maya class for 3D modeling, there was like two girls in there, and the rest of them were all boys. And so, just seeing that shift in the past 5 years happen is again like those are gifts that are just like rewards, payments, whatever you call them, that like they're just really mind-boggling, like to be in it and experiencing it. And then so to get to go to school for it is something that was rewarding. But let me tell you, doing the murals, becoming an entrepreneur, I gained, you fell on your face, things that life lessons that school can give you. School is like kind of like they nurture you in some different ways. So, but putting yourself out there is the best thing you could do. And if you can't afford school, don't let that stop you because honestly, like some of the biggest billionaires, entrepreneurs, everything, geniuses, whatever you want to call them, they don't even have degrees and you don't really need that. I have it, but it's not on the forefront that, this was the most better than a piece of paper, if you ask me. Like there was just such life lessons, like again, confident building. Like I told myself, I don't think I could do that, but I ended up doing it. And then that goes back to school. So the reason why I did my first mural was because I couldn't afford to go to summer school. So I said I have to stay busy. Like that's just who I am. Like, and okay, so I had to stay busy because there's something happening in my life that there's a change of roles where my mom's health there's a change of roles. My mom's health is getting deteriorating or whatever we want to call it. And she's just getting older. And so I just needed a form of healing too, or distraction because it was just drastic. And then so when the muralism opportunity came, it was a double win. Like, oh, I can't take this summer class because I couldn't afford it because these classes are like $900. So I couldn't afford it. But then I got this other opportunity where I was going to do a pro bono mural, but the reward, the lessons, the thing I was going to take from it was better than a 1 in a month half class at Cal State LA because that's where I went. So it's just I can't tell you enough. Putting yourself out there is like the biggest reward and lessons you could take. Life lessons. And it's like only putting yourself out there once. Like we go to school for like 3 months. And again, I took way more from one mural in 1 month than those 3 months. So
Yeah, and yeah, no, absolutely. And going back to what you were
about murals, that's how bad it was. Like, oh, how am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to render it? Like, and my first mural was Nina Simone, Miles Davis, and I did this huge, just color, and I was freaking out. I would have nightmares that one day I was gonna walk into there and it was gonna be painted over, like all these nightmares. But I faced all of them, and they're here, and it's taught me so many growing like lessons, and it's beautiful. I can't tell you, like the muralism journey has given me so much in return.
That's I love that you look at it as a form of therapy, and my goodness, I mean, if you could have taken an easier road, but like talk about in terms of pure artistry, you went right into the deep end. Your first mural is Miles Davis and Nina Simone. Like, I mean,
Well,
Mississippi, that's pretty deep. Like, you know?
it's I feel like they, in the face of their oppression, they face so much. I mean, Nina Simone borrowed from our culture. She literally started calling herself Nina because someone would always call her that. Like, and I just see her, like, she's always said that, like, artists have to reflect their times. So without even knowing, like, I just felt like in my time I have to color and paint. And Nina has been so significant to all music. And to me, music is universal. So music and art go hand in hand. And they're like, one is liquid architecture and then the other one is sound. And so they're to me the basis of rock and roll, of everything today, R&B. So you got to give shout outs to the legends. You just have to.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Nina Simone like gets lost in the shuffle, but especially with like this the new span of activists that has kind of emerged on both sides of political spectrums, right? I mean, Tea Party one side, Black Lives Matter on the other, what have you. And Nina Simone was saying Mississippi, goddamn, like way back, and really fighting not only to be a person of color, but a woman. And like you couldn't do that. And the way that she started out and, retreating to front, like it's just like Nina Simone, Miles Davis, Josephine Baker, like it's just, those are, yeah, I mean,
like
this,
still listen to their music and it's a little bit sad that it still reflects our times because you think we'd be a little more progressive, but I'm glad we have that, right? We have it as a tool, and that's what I'm saying. Like these are tools that we're gifting to the world, I hope. Like because they speak. Like Nina and Miles also dealt with so many like mental like challenges and imbalances and like demons and whatnot, like because of oppression. And as a woman, I I'm not here to advertise but yes, we face a lot of stereotypes, like I said. So I'm all
no,
about
that's,
breaking them.
no, that's absolutely it, right? And yes, it seems kind of it seems weird, right? And weird is putting it very simplistic, right? But it's the fact that we're still kind of dealing with things of like literally, hundreds of years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and we're still kind of here, and it's just like, but then again, like the active, the current day activists may not know of a Nina Simone, right? Somebody that marches or what have you, they might not know of that work, and like why we've gotten here, and why there's distrust in certain institutions, and it's just like I remember seeing I think it was like a Vice documentary about uh, people who were American descendant of slaves and Latinos that went to like Oral Roberts University and experiencing racism, right? And so they're deep in the South. Oral Roberts was like this televangelist and what have you, and they went to his university so they can become like theologists, they become preachers and like spiritual people and what have you, and haven't faced the most like racism that they ever had in their lives. And it's just like, okay, but again, like, have you listened to Miles? Like, have you listened to Nina? Have you listened to Josephine Baker? Little Richard. Like, there's so many. I know. Like, I mean, Selena. That was a big. I remember we had just came to LA. Right as she was like getting mainstream, right before she ended up unfortunately passing away, and I remember how that felt. Just I remember the feeling of just like almost hopelessness, and especially it was by Yolanda Saldivar as somebody that she knew and loved. And I mean, if you had essentially sent a fan letter to Selena, it went through the fingers of Yolanda Saldivar, and you took our Selena away from us, right? But it's just like one of the great things, not just like in the movie, but like something that happened in her life is getting ready for the Grammys and going to a mall and literally the person thinking that, oh, you can't afford that and whatever, just thinking that. And essentially, what happens is like, no, she's down for the Grammys. There's a swarm of people coming in by like the dozens, if not hundreds, and it's just like, to me, I, I think a lot of that gets lost in the struggle because like people aren't willing to look past, and it's weird because you do have these new instances of like again TikTok, Instagram, all of these things where you can YouTube is a great resource for a lot of information, but you know it's still not connecting. I at least I don't think.
I mean, Selena was a huge influence, of course, especially since she was bilingual, because I do believe that like the system is meant to like, you know, like repress us too. Like, so I did love that about her. And then like being able to like sing her songs in Spanish and practice my own bilingualism, like because I do want to practice it more and more because I do have an accent, but it doesn't matter. Practice scholar for life. But yeah, like she was a huge influence, and that always saddened me that she was taken away from us because I always think, imagine what the industry would have been had she still been around. Like this curvaceous, multi-talented, bilingual, was able to go such a huge Latin market that till this day no one's tapping into. I mean, you see everybody's kind of like starting to dive into it a little bit, like Drake, singing in Spanish. I love it. Like, and so I love that we could borrow from one another, like, and that's why I like painting in barbershops, like doing murals in there. I just love that like we could lean on each other, like our cultures, especially, like, cause we're badass. Like, we bring so much beauty, like music, talent, like, it's so
Food,
endless and deep.
food.
Oh,
My,
don't get me started on that.
No, absolutely. I mean, you left one check off, but food. I mean, my dad, who grew up in Indiana, and then he went to literally fight during Vietnam, but he was stationed in Korea, right? And he was just like, that's the best way that you could really literally break bread with people and find out what their culture is about is tasting their foods and knowing how different parts of like us as Americans like Korea, but if you go to like to different parts of Korea, like kimchi is different. Like there's certain things that you think of, like a particular dish from Oaxaca, right, is going to be totally different and nuanced than the one that you would find at I don't know, like Cancun. It's just like different flavors, and to me that's another thing, and that's we're so I guess blessed and you're spoiled to live in LA, right? Because you get it. You want Armenian culture, you want Middle Eastern culture, you want Latinx culture, you want American descendant of slave culture. Like there are places that you can go and you can
And now we
sample
have the
that.
hybrid cuisines. Like I've been to this place where it was Korean and Mexican. So they had a chorizo burger. So the food. I think Diego Luna has this show right now on Amazon where the premises is like all you do is sit down with these fascinated minds, and they're all just picking at each other's brains. It doesn't matter if they agree, and they're just talking over food. And that to me, like, oh, don't even get me started. If more cultures could, you know, connect through food, I think we'd be in more harmonious place. Like, yeah, food is everything, to me too. Like, I watch all kinds of cooking shows from Vice to like Netflix to Phil. Everybody loves Phil. Like, I'm all about those cooking shows. And to me, it's like taking from cultures, like, because I'm always fascinated with other cultures, like all the time, like from tribes, indigenous tribes in the Amazon to our neighbors up north, the Canadians, how friendly they are. Like, I'm always fascinated. Like, how do you live your quality of life? Like, because we're all in this little bubble and like the world is like a box of crayons, and like I'm fascinated by people and like the more I could learn from different parts of the world, I mean, you can't even learn everything. The world is ever evolving. Like, so just keep your eyes open while we can, right?
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think the euphemism is, take a second to smell the roses, right? And the roses are, it's not just roses. There's birds of paradise. There's chrysanthemums. There's a lot of stuff that you could just take a second to sit and really engage with it, right? Or let it engage you, what you thought. And that's one of the reasons why I love Rogan so much, right? Where, it's just like, I'm not attached to any one set of beliefs or ideologies or whatever. Like, if you change my mind, I might come into a situation thinking this, but if you change my mind, then that's just what's going to happen. I'm not going to resist it. So that's that.
I mean, even yeah, Joe Rogan goes into like everything from like Sasquatch, right, to like shrooms. Like he's a very fascinating individual, and as we should constantly be exploring our own world, not be in such a rush to go to space. Like don't get me wrong, like we have to also go into. I love sci-fi, like I love it. But we have so much resources here that we're depleting, and so if you do want to talk to me about like the activism in our world. Like there's so much change to be done here with food, with our agriculture. Like, like we have it all. Like we don't need to be just like eating like junk food all the time. Like there's so much beauty and ingredients out there that we haven't even tapped into or that we forgot about, you know, that we genetically modified into something else, you know.
Yeah, 1,000%. And Stephen Tatum says, yes, no one wants to be working for someone forever. All dreams have their own journeys. And in terms of art being therapy, all alternative therapeutics are godsends, right? And definitely, agree about YouTube, mass portal for everything from learning to even keeping up with social events during this crazy COVID holiday. All right.
I know, right? Because we're social animals. Like, let's not forget that.
Yes, absolutely. Which, I mean, in terms of like, um, being socially kind of evolving, right? Obviously, somebody that was a huge influence on you, and you kind of touched on it, and I want to kind of harken back to it. But your mother, right? Your mother, you being a farm girl. I mean, literally, your first as a young girl yourself. Having a like a strong, your first kind of female strong archetype is your mother, right? And what influence has she had on you? And then talk to us about her story of what you know of it.
She's had a great influence on me because she's always been a woman who's lived by her own way. And so even from her youth being my age and deciding to come to the States and start a whole new life and then become a mother out here to me is like, wow, you did that, because I can't picture myself going to Canada and then starting a whole new life. I just can't. And so to me that was resilience. She got, needing to learn the system, and then like culture clash, everything was inspiring to me. Her raising three kids by herself was extremely inspiring, especially my two older brothers and me. Like we were a handful. So, like all that, like especially now growing up, I'm like, I idolize her even way more because through it all, like she's always remained like has this huge big heart that no one like even knows about, like super forgiving, super like um just a big heart. And so with all that, like she's been so resilient. She's came to a whole new country to give her kids a better life and herself. Like I mean, that to me is like inspiring. And again, she didn't need to go to school for none of that. She did that like without schooling. To me, that was the smartest thing she could have done because look at now I'm here. I get to be bilingual. I have all these tools, the education. I get to make LA my playground, one of the most popular cities in the entire world. So, I mean, Jesus, those were gifts that she was giving us that she didn't even know she was giving us. And always going to be eternally grateful that she did all that. And to this day, she's a tough cookie and always like so resilient, like even today in her like sickness. So I just idolize her. And again, because she lives by her own way, she's from a family of 15, right? So there's opinions all the time. Even I get them. And she always lived by her own, like, way. And I just always was fascinated by that. And as an artist, that's why I guess like where I get to channel that, like, oh, this is how I am. This is how I dress. This is who I am. And, and I don't really like, I guess I leave out that white noise because I've always saw her do that too.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing because I to share an immigrant story via my mom, where my mom, she came over from Fiji, small island. She used to joke with Yeah, she used to joke with us, my sister and I, the fact that if you couldn't find Fiji on a particular map or whatever, don't buy that map, because only it was almost like if you don't know now, right? And for me, it's a weird one because she came here and she knew English. Fiji being a British Commonwealth up until 1970, like she knew English, but it was the Queen's English, the way that they speak in Britain and the rest of the British Commonwealth. But she even, when she came here in '82, she even was accosted about her sounding different, right? How, and that was English, right? That was English. I mean, a subtle difference from American English, because I mean, there's certain nuances like what people from the British Commonwealth call cigarettes. It's not vogue here, or a cat, right? It's not vogue, right? But you know, she kind of taught us a little bit to kind of assimilate. We had a American father, and she didn't want to. I mean, like if we had even a tinge of accent, which I still kind of carry, and she would kind of suppress it. Because she went through so many hardships coming here and being different, right? That she wanted my sister and I, being American born, first generation, to not have any of the things that she went through in terms of the hardships. Now, later, especially now that she's passed, you know, being different is like almost like a gem of a thing, right? Because you don't go your own way, and that's a lot of what you
Right?
feel with your mom.
Yeah, like to me, you have to be authentic. If you're not, then like, and me and your sister always talk about energies. So like, if you're not authentic, half the time I pick up on that and I'll give you the opportunity. Maybe you're a little bit insecure about like releasing yourself, but like, I'm all about authenticity. Be yourself. Like, a matter of fact, like the more colorful and yourself you are, the more I think you are beautiful. Like, because you get to connect and be true to who you are. You're not a sheep. Don't be a sheep. you know
No,
you don't
absolutely.
be on TikTok. You don't, like I said, you don't have to be like have 20,000 followers. Like, you just be you, and that's all that matters. someone's
Absolutely.
always someone's always watching.
Someone is, yeah. And it's quality versus quantity, right? You could have the thousands, and again, and being an artist yourself, right? Some people take their Instagrams or their TikToks very seriously. It's a medium in which they feel that they can kind of construct whatever narrative that they're trying to tell, right? That's essentially what I see there. But it's a weird one, right? Because like being authentic, sometimes by trying to find authenticity, you become uh more fictitious at times, right? It becomes a persona versus like, hey, a media in which like the art is the one that should like dictate where I'm going with it, not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely building on that. Like, just again, like, Sade, like to me, she's such a authentic. Like, she doesn't need to keep regurgitating albums. Like, she lives this humble life. Like, on the DL. She doesn't need to keep like that's what I love about her. I mean, not to mention just her talented and amazing music, but like see, it's you don't need to be in the limelight, you could be who you are, give your gifts to the world and go live a low key life too. Right afterwards, it's not again, it's not all about the numbers and likes and whatnot,
Yeah, it's funny because like so my dad being a musician, and I remember actually going to see Sade at a concert. My dad had surprised my mom. Yeah. So and it's crazy because like my mom actually kind of took a little bit of there's some static because nowadays, especially pre-COVID, people like Rogan, people like Dave Chappelle, right? They're like, leave your phones, out of it. We're basically going to put it in a like an anti-theft bag, and you essentially collect, leave them in the lobby and then collect it, but they're not allowed inside the venue. Well, Sade was doing that like in the late 80s, early 90s, where she was
Really?
yeah, I mean, literally no Polaroids, like bag checks. I remember that. And my mom was just like, if we're gonna pay, and I mean, for the time, that was a pretty penny in terms of tickets. And then, I mean, to have four at that, and my sister, shout out to my sister Gigi, but she was, I mean, not even. I think she might have still been in diapers, maybe about one or two. So paying a full price ticket for her, paying a full price ticket to me, and then those two, right, having a date night with kids, no babysitter and what have you. My mom was like, and I can't have a picture. Like I can't have a picture. Like I can't bust out my Polaroid or my disposable camera. So yeah, but I mean, it was a great thing. It's something that kind of reverberates. I'm sure Mara remembers it, but I mean, I remember it.
I heard Rihanna did that too. Like she started actually like talking crap to her, or I mean, saying things to her crowd, like "get off your phone." And so like I get it, like in today's culture. You know what I just read that the new beauty trend, because I do love fashion. Next year is going to be SPF for your phone. Can you believe that?
Wait,
Like
SPF like
apparently
10, right?
your phone, I love tech, so apparently your phone is projecting a blue light, and you need sunscreen for that now. I don't know. And so
What?
so when I heard that, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be off Instagram. Like I'm gonna limit my time now to like 1 hour. I hope.
No, I
Look
think
into it.
oh no, for sure. Oh man, you sound like Eddie Bravo as fuck right now. Look into it. Shout out to Eddie Bravo. But no, I mean it's crazy, and I don't know if you got the message, but like I've been without a phone. Like I cracked it to shit. Like as ways of trying to not pay too much money out and everything like that. I was like, guess what? I've got this phone, and I mean it's a Samsung Note 10 Plus because it shoots in 4K. That is especially when I was do doing the Weekend Warrior deal, MMA shows, pro wrestling shows every weekend, pre-COVID. I was just like, hey, I might not have credentials, so I might not have a full-on, like camera setup or whatever. I need my phone to do essentially what I needed to do to capture an interview or what have you, right? So I got it, but as like again, bills are going out and everything like that. You're trying to figure out ways to kind of take back some of your money and what have you. So I had the bright idea to go ahead and cancel all the insurances on all of the phones on our plan. And yes,
Of course.
and right. And I mean, the halves of it is, and the irony, and it's not lost on me, but I got this like full on like titanium case and whatever. It looked like something out of like Star Trek. I mean, William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy version, right? Like just and it made it like three times weightier than the actual phone itself. And literally put it on. It even had screws that I had to like Allen wrench in and everything like that. And again, it weighed three times more. The case weighed three times more than the actual phone. So the first drop that I do, and this happened probably about May-ish, first drop cracks the top left-hand center. And I'm all like, and I was I was kind of dealing with it, and then I dropped it again, and it just started flickering, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh, you said you had a Samsung, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was part of the reason. I mean, speaking of tech, I've been Apple. I still love Apple, but you know, their phones, I mean, they were just shooting them out every year, and you're trying to keep up again like a sheep or whatever. And so eventually I'm like, I'm tired of this iPhone trend. And then I just thought like Samsung had so many more like geek things to like play around with. And so finally I switched to, and like the case is better, but it did crack the more expensive Samsung. Now I have the Note, and that one seems like less fragile, I guess. But yeah, that's part of the reason I got out of the Apple family, because their phones were like, it's almost like they were building them to like crack, so I don't like that.
No, absolutely. I mean, but it works in one way, right? Where there's so many of them, right? To get a repair for your Apple, if the screen shatters or what have you, it's like $50. Like there's some places $50, you're out, in and out, whatever. Um, I got something to the tune of $400 for my Samsung Note 10 Plus. So I'm
Yeah,
all
because
like,
they're mhm.
yeah. So I've been without, but again, I've been without a phone for like 2 weeks, literally just, checking, my laptop periodically and everything like that. But then because it's not in my pocket, that I actually have to go to work, and I make a conscious effort to, either, put it in the studio kind of setup that I have in the corner of the living room, or, like with me, but I'm not checking it as often, right? And to me, I'm all like, do I really need a phone? Like, and I'm sure I do, but again, just to be able to limit that, it's something, And Stephen Tatum said he researched the blue light when handling my insomnia when it was strong. So he had insomnia. Jeez, and some of the new phones have blue light features in the settings. Absolutely,
Yeah, I
mine did.
actually have. I've turned off mine, but come on, right? Apparently, so I recently went to go get my glasses, and the glasses now have the blue light filters. So apparently, we can't have it all. Just kidding. Everything comes with side effects.
Wow, that's weird. It's so weird, but I mean, it is. I mean, that's kind of the. I don't want to say like the trade-off, because like before, to get information, you would essentially. I mean, when I was in elementary school and even into middle school, like you literally had to do like Encyclopedia Britannica. You had to befriend. Usually, it was like an Asian kid, right? And their parents literally spent the entire like $5,000 for all 70 some odd sets of the Encyclopedia Britannica, and if we had a project, we would just float over to their house and everything like that. And yeah, now we have all of that information and more. Like literally in our pockets, we have more technology than what sent the initial spacecraft to the moon way back when. So but that's the trade-off, right? Is like there's misinformation, there's like everybody can start whatever, so there's trade-offs, but everybody, what everybody will resign versus actually um, interpret as good things. It's subjective, right? But you know, to me, even before like the phone broke, like I would literally like post like 10 memes and then just be off of it. And then oh, a podcast, and then just be off of it, and doing that,
You
that
know,
was kind of my way to.
I have a lot of close friends, and the funny thing is that they're off the grid. They're not even on social media. So, like, again, like I'm fascinated by everybody, and like like they're just as authentic because they don't need to be on the social media. Like, so I love that about them. Like, but then I love my friends who have 20,000 followers. Like, I ask them, hey, how'd you get so many followers? So like, it doesn't matter. I'm on like both spectrums too. Like, I appreciate the people who are off the grid because I'm like, like, oh, you're off the grid. No one could like see you, attack you, or Google you. But then, like then I also appreciate, I am putting myself out there as an artist. I know that that's going to be the responsibility you hold. And so, I appreciate both sides, and knowing both personalities, like respecting why they're off the grid, like why they don't like believe in social media, and the way they think that the companies are just, how do I say, stealing our information.
Yeah, or feeding the, insatiable need that us as humans to want to have approval, to want to be liked, they
Yeah.
to want to be loved, that they've integrated.
Ever since AOL, dude, I was on Napster. My brothers would get so mad at me because I was like chatting with like strangers. I'd be like, "Hi, like we could talk. Like you're on the other side of the world." Like I was always like a little geek at heart. Like 'cause I was always playing Sims. That's where my love for like CGI and modeling came in. And again, like games are not all bad. With the negative connotations like people have with them. Like if I kept going into like the Sims route, like I'd easily like get into like architecture too. But like it is universal. I loved when Napster was out. I was downloading music like crazy, like, and I was on AOL, like, so I love talking to people. I love talking to strangers. Like you know, and my brothers did get mad at me. I was their little sister. They're like, "Why are you talking to boys?" Like, no, you know. But it was beautiful that you could connect with strangers, and now it's even crazier. I literally got in jobs just off my Instagram. So to me, that's amazing. Like I got to meet a director from Hollywood, and like I got to paint a mural for like his YouTube series, and like never even met, just all based on Instagram. Like just found me, called me, no resume. Like it was just a beautiful experience, and I'm still really close to them. And I got a motion graphic job after that. Like so, it's just all about networking.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. The way, and again, it's the importance that you put on particular things, right? Because to me, I think like social media is essentially word of mouth on roids. That's literally it. If you went to a place and you're like, oh, it's the drizzling shits. Well, instead of say 15 years ago, and then you're like, hey, telling your friends it's the drizzling shits, don't go there. Then now you have an influence of probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and like, oh, don't go here, right? So there's that, and then also on the other side of the spectrum, it's just like, oh, I love this place. You should go here. I think you like that, and then do that. And just like your instance with the director, like, oh, I really dig her work. I'm just gonna reach out to her, right? Like, I mean, before social media or without social media, could you have imagined that to happen or as quickly as it did?
no, because like again, like even the coffee shop where I got to do my first mural, like I didn't find out about what they were doing. It was only because of social media. Like so I was like, oh, because I love coffee. So I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to go all far to get my like nice coffee, because no debunks to Starbucks, but to me that's like McDonald's, right? So I was so excited that they were bringing like um, this type of fine coffee to our community. And I didn't find that out until like I was on the social media. And so through that, I was able to connect, introduce myself to like one of the owners, and it just blossomed from there, right? And I wouldn't have known if I would, because I don't speak, like we're not connecting with all of our acquaintances from high school. So there's so much beauty with social media, there is. And then after like the coffee shop, I got to meet with the Hilton that was going up right next door, and I got to interview with them, and like it was a surreal experience, I tell you. And then they wanted me to do like a 16 type chapel mural. It didn't fall through, but still, like just again to be given these experiences, to even negotiate, to even present a budget. These are all like lessons that even if it doesn't go through, like I'm still practicing and learning, and even knowing now, oh, this works and this doesn't, right? So
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And then
yeah,
from there, from the coffee shop, then I got the barber shop. So it was just like it just keeps happening. And then being projecting my work online, now I got to meet someone from YouTube. So it's just, it's just like a tree, it's growing, right? And then I got to meet you. So it's endless. Like it's beautiful. We met that one night, we had a ball, right? Like, so it's just a nice experience to be able to meet all these like beautiful artists, because you are an artist too. Like, you're editing, you're doing all kinds of stuff. Like, I love editing too. Don't even get me started. I used to like make all these videos for my nephew, like on their birthdays, like, and so I still like deep diving or getting into all kinds of stuff.
No, I think it's amazing, right? Like you said, right? Planting the seeds, right? And I love that you kind of, whether you knew it or not, you essentially basically came around to it being a tree, and a tree of knowledge, a tree of exploration. And it's funny because I deal a lot in like MMA, right? And I heard something from a fighter, and it was like somebody had asked him, like, how do you get to 20-7, right? Like, what is the process? And he was just like, well, yes, it's 20 like excellent performances, and then 7 lessons. He looked at the losses as the lesson. So, in those instances where, things might not work out the way that you wanted it to, or they might not do, I mean, the route in terms of where the trajectory is, it might not be the way that you charted it out. But again, these are all lessons along the way that you can take into the next kind of instance of, exploration, and seeing, where you're not even looking at it as like, oh, I'm doing this for them. This is like a mutual kind of transaction that's going on. Like, I bring as much to the table as the other person.
That's the perfect way to put it, like a mutual transaction. I always see it like that. Like, even today, like, I always tell like some of the barbers or even like the coffee shops, like, I'm like, I hope, like, I'm like putting your mural out there. Like, I feel like I'm promoting both of us, though, your business and me. And like, it's a beautiful thing that we get to like collaborate together. Like, it's not just you displaying my artwork. That's amazing that you're doing that. But like, I will forever like have like, oh, go to this barber shop, like, like, so it's like a mutual transaction, I have done a mural at a playground, so like I have so many friends who have kids right now, so like it was just like a flux, like everybody was going to the playground now, because why wouldn't they, like, and they didn't even know about it, so we're all like helping each other out, and that's how I see it, a mutual transaction. Like, sometimes, and that's something I've learned, like, I don't highball anymore. I work with my clients. And so like in the end, like, we're giving each other so much that it doesn't even have to be like that social construct that we've created, which is money. It doesn't all have to be figures, like right now, like old interviews, we would pay each other, right? Like, like supposedly, like, we don't have to do that. Like, we could do these things for free and help each other and
No,
grow.
yes, and this is the part of the community. This is where you bring, like, again, LA has got what,
Love
4 million people, right? Something like that, some crazy number, but essentially bringing it, into a way that, yeah, exactly. And also interpreting it in a way that you can understand, right? Because I think it's, even with like social media, the fact that it's against human nature. Like, theoretically, we lived in villages, right? That's the genesis of humankind, right? We lived in villages, and we basically interacted with like our 7 to 11 people, right? And we kept it pretty much, right? And then a neighboring village would come, and then you might, either like them or be at war with them or whatever. But again, you kept your circle within like 20 people. Like, the fact that you could say like, oh, I've got 1,000 people that follow what I do on this particular medium. Well, it's almost against human nature. Or I live in a town that has 4 million people. That's like bigger than some like international states, if not countries, right? But a way to kind of bring it back is like through the arts, through, stories, and sharing stories such as yours that, like, they might know like a little bit of you, or at least interpret what they feel. But then, like, here we go, we've got like this audio, like, and that's why I love this medium so much, because it's just like, I'm no doctor or anything, right? There's no like, big editing plan or anything like that. It's just like, this is you in the moment. It's coming out of your words. I'm not, like, it's it's a way to kind of communicate in a way that, again, it's digestible to people, but again, it's the person, the subject, essentially coming from their voice, their like, there's nothing that I'm changing about you. This is you, that people are going to go like, hey, you know what, she might I might reach out to her on social media and whatever, because I need this thing done. And you never know what happens, what could come of it.
Yeah, I definitely, the possibilities are endless. Like, again, I never saw, like, especially like at my last barber shop with Lalo, like, he was so sweet. Like, 3 murals in his barber shop. I didn't think one, let alone three. So just, again, like, these gifts are just, they just keep coming. And like, I absolutely eternally grateful for people like him. And then like meeting Gigi, like another like beautiful soul. Like, it's just the gifts keep on giving, you know. And meeting your nephew too, like, he's such a sweetheart.
Yeah, Gavin, he's absolutely brilliant, that kid. Um,
Helping with Hero, so he has like his strokes on there. He has to sign his name soon. Yeah.
that's absolutely brilliant. Now, as an artist, right? I might be asking you almost a taboo question, but I'm going to go with it. So, not to say you picking your favorite mural that you've done, but let's say, do you have a favorite experience of, like, not just like having a concept, cultivating it, seeing how you were going to, you know, is this going to be a digital form? Is this going to be a mural? Like, do you have a favorite experience in your career thus far?
Well, normally my process when I do work with clients, I do give them a digital preview. So because I know Adobe Photoshop, I give them the preview or a slight preview as to what I plan to render for them. And so with my first mural, it was all creative freedom. So that one I am more fonder with. Again, Nina Simone, Miles Davis, and then there was like a third figure, which it was Lucha Libre, like, talk about wrestling, because it originated in our culture, and often we, there you go. So like, to me, the mask symbolizes resilience, remember? So I tell you that I learned that from my mom. So like, you know, life is always going to give you struggles, so you just got to get back up, like. And that, to me, that was the alter ego with adding the lucha libre symbol on there. And yeah, she's just a woman, a wrestler, and she'll fight all you boys too, even if it is, sometimes it does feel like a man's world. And that's what I loved about that first mural. It was it also had elements of fire, water, and earth, because I'm all about nurturing your spirit with what we already have. So I love hiking, I love exercising, and I think all the tools to make you happy sometimes are already out there and they're free. And so I added those elements on the background. And my apologies for not having the mural to show you, but if you go on my Instagram, Emma's Daisy, you'll find it there under murals. And so that one will stay within my heart the most, because it was just the most challenging, the most fearful, and I did it, and it had like these legends on there, and then it had both cultures, like Latinos and then in current climate, like, without even knowing, I rendered this 2 years ago. Look at what happened. Like, we were fighting hand by hand right now. Like, like, we're in cages, and you know what I mean? Like, so it was just, I didn't even know it was going to become so like relevant, at the same time. So that is my favorite
Yeah,
mural. But I love all of them because they're all different. Every client wanted something different, from like Nipsey, black and white, to just like portraits. So I've always wanted to render in like hyper realism. So the fact that I get to like explore that and try it out, and all via paintbrush strokes. So my next goal is to try to get into airbrushing. But stay tuned, because that's just, more money and more supplies I gotta get. So all my murals are painted. So that's why they take a little longer. So if you do know, airbrushing is you could get murals done like in half the time when you're doing that, but maybe, to each their own. And so to me, the
yeah.
first mural was my favorite, to answer your question.
I love it. Yeah, you'll never forget your first. That's a prevailing thing for all facets of life, right? So, I mean, obviously, you have been influenced by so many people, right? Both professionally, artistically, and personally, right? So, I'd like to get some acknowledgments or shout outs out of the way.
Well, obviously, first and foremost, my family, um, my mother, like just the big family I come from. Like we sometimes, like, we always mean well. Like we always are helping each other out, and I wouldn't have the things I have if it weren't for them. And then my brothers too. Like I have like both sides because of them. Like I could call myself a tomboy sometimes. I know people don't, but I love CGI, I love gaming and all that. And then everything, my community, like they've given me so much in return now. Like I did one pro bono mural, but the way it's flourishing now, like I've met so many great friends and mentors. So, friends, family, and community, I'm so eternally grateful. Because that's the goal too. Like I want to do all my murals are within like a 5 mile radius of one another. So I'm born and raised in Montebello, so that was the goal, to color my city, not be in like the places that are getting gentrified, and to do this within my own community and not it be by some outside source. So that's just been eternally grateful that.
Can you leave them in my phone? Okay.
I I think it's I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I mean, was that something that you thought about? Is like having them within 5 miles of each other? I think that's a cool little nuance.
Yeah, actually, one day I was driving home and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do a little tour of my bureaus, like, because they're so like," and like a few of them you could see at night, right? With some of the businesses, but yeah, it's very nice. Like I didn't, but that was the goal. Like Montebello is a very small community, and this is where I wanted to start. And I want to do this thing called the Edison Project, where we're gonna start painting the electricity boxes, but it was hard to like juggle it all. I told you I want to be everywhere at the same time. So yeah, it's just about painting my city, the place where I'm born and raised, and yeah, making it beautiful, and like, yeah, and people seeing these, like, this color and this culture that we have to give. Because if you look into our culture, we're like, we love color, just like your culture. Like uh, it's all about bright, bold colors. Like, and that's who we are. So I'm eternally grateful that my community has been receptive, and I get to still do this here. You know, especially today. When we need community more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Community is something that we have learned, especially more so in the last year than ever before. It's absolutely vital for our flourishing in terms of our journey through this thing called life, in the words of Prince, right? So go for it.
Well, see, Prince was another person. He didn't care. His fashion was so universal, and like he would scream at the top of his lungs, and just I love how he wasn't afraid to be so authentic, because he was like, he was labeled all kinds of things because of his fashion sense, or the way he presented himself. Like, but he always stood true to who he was, and even his religious ideologies. Like he didn't even have a will because of it. So I love people who stick to who they are and they don't get washed in, all the white noise. Stay true to you.
Stay true to you. I absolutely love it. And for those who want to essentially become a part of your community, where can they find you, on social media or otherwise?
I'm at Miss Daisy. I should have added that right there on my intro, but you can find me at Miss Daisy. That's MISDISY. And yeah, for now, that's the only platform where my work is on. But when I do make a website, maybe we can link up again and promote that.
That's it. I would say that's an appointment to make. Absolutely. And I can't wait for that. Just another avenue for people to kind of reach out to you and essentially uh, get the world as they see it through your eyes. And I think that's absolutely amazing. But also, what is also amazing is you guys out there for joining us here at According to Woods. And I can't thank you enough for joining us here. Thank you, Daisy, for being able to tell your story. This is absolutely brilliant in many ways. Now, if you haven't already done so, I'd encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to According to Woods on both Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, and there might even be a Twitch. I'm still tinkering that. Maybe 2021. That might happen. But thank you guys for joining us. And if you haven't already done so, again, subscribe. But don't just take my word for it. Here's Professor Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you